Hello, and welcome to the Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio. That's me. And I am here today with another very special guest who definitely leads what she lives. Her name is Susan Richards. She's a dear friend of mine, and she is the CEO of CredTech Consulting, LLC. And we are going on a journey with her today, both in her personal and professional life journey, to demonstrate for us how she does lead what she lives. So Susan, welcome to Lead What You Live podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tina. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Susan and I met probably less than 2 years ago through some mutual friends, some guys we knew that we were both doing business with in a different way. And nothing I love more than meeting another powerful woman in leadership, and with a finance background that I have as well. We really hit it off. I understand a lot about consumer debt, consumer financing, with one of my many backgrounds in mortgage financing. And so we've had some really great conversation. She's also a mother of grown children. We'll talk about that, as I am a mother to 3 grown children. So we understand each other on many levels, both business, love, life, and get to connect that way. So Susan, welcome. And so talk to me about being the CEO of CredTech Consulting, and you can start with that. Tell us exactly what is CredTech Consulting.
Sure. Thank you again for having me, Tina. This is so exciting. A little bit about CredTech. CredTech, I established a year ago, back in April. So my initial thought was to be totally fractional operations, to come in collection agencies and debt buyers. I've done that for 35 years. So I wanted to come in and spend time developing their organization, helping them do a better job when it came to recovery, giving a really excellent customer experience. That's what, my initial objective was with starting my company. It evolved quite a bit. And what happened was a lot of people wanted to utilize me for my resources and some of my connections. So it turned into a lot of fractional business development, in which I come in and talk to people, even in the sense of BPO. And BPO is business processing outsourcing. So what that looks like is people or organizations who need somebody to come in and help them build out US-based customers that are looking to outsource offshore, because the cost to collect here is so, unfortunately, with some of the compliance restraints and expenses that it is to run a call center here, it's so expensive. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to work in call centers anymore. They just don't like call centers. It's not what their goals are. So call center jobs are really hard to find, hard to fill. So these organizations are using offshore
call centers from other countries. And we hear that a lot when we call, whether you're calling one of the cell phone companies or your bank, all kinds of institutions. And so who are your clients specifically? Because I know you don't work directly with the end consumer.
That's right. I work with banks, credit unions. I work with debt buyers. I work with collection agencies. Anybody who is lending debt or lending money, should I say, it's not lending debt, but lending money, and have to then have receivables, accounts receivables, and then need somebody to help, collect on that debt. Those are the companies I work with. So, just recently, like I said, I've been involved with also the outsourcing side. So I've been involved with that. And additionally, an example is a credit union asking me to come in and help them operationally. their operations on the collection side. Maybe the person that came in never did collections before. She was or he was a teller and was looking to evolve. And they said, hey, let's say it's you, Tina, tap you on the shoulder. I'd like you to run our collection department. But, they never did collections before. And their loan losses continue to go up. Right now in our economic climate, debt is at an all-time high.
Yes. Like
And it's
30 some $trillion in consumer debt, right?
And yes, and it's continuing to rise. And people are talking about, are we in a recession? People are talking about whether we are in, are we going into a depression, God forbid, things like that. So debt is, in my industry, 35 years, it's always been very busy. I'm busy whether we're in a great economy or whether we're in a really poor economy. So I've spent a lot of time working with all these folks, but back to the credit unions right now, they're not used to all this debt. So they're concerned about how do we deal with this. So like I said, in one operational situation, they came in and said, hey, could you come in and reorganize us, get us back on track, help us reduce our loan loss.
And is that an example of where you would come in as a fractional COO?
Yes,
for
but
example,
that's more
or
like
consultant.
That's more consulting. Me coming in contractually, coming in and saying, hey, let me evaluate your organization. Let me take a week or two, come in, spend, a full day, 40 hours a week, whatever, and sit and, watch your organization, mirror it, look at it, C-suite all the way down to the collector.
And then from there, you could also assess whether or not they would benefit from the BPO, from having a call center, or a collection outsourced. Do they consider banks or credit unions and other institutions, if they don't have someone outside of in-house, are they willing to consider outsourcing the collections?
Oh, yeah, they all are right now.
They all are.
Yeah, credit unions are a little behind, but banks have been doing it forever. They've been always outsourcing from customer service on to collections.
It's interesting. You said credit unions weren't institutions that are used to having this much debt. And what do you attribute that to?
Our economy. Inflation. Inflation right now. Credit unions are, they're a little bit different than your normal banks. They really care about their members, so member and how the members are being treated. So it's just the debt. Right now our economic climate is not good.
A lot of their customer base, their consumer, are also maybe government employees often. Is that fair to say? Police, fire, teachers unions, things of that nature?
Yeah, there's all kinds of credit unions. You'd be shocked. Some of them in California, I was talking, it was, if you live in this certain region, you can be a participant in the credit union. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be a union person. But you're correct. Overall, credit unions are, a lot of them do have some of that government backing, but not every single one. So
you wouldn't know from the stock market making new highs, and here we are 4.5 months away from another election here in 2024. And so, of course, our inflation and the debt that we have is a hot topic, is a big topic. So what do you attribute when you look out there? Why so much debt? Is it really just because of the inflation? We got overextended after COVID. Do you see something in particular having shifted since COVID the past 4 years?
Yeah, I think all of the above. So let me explain a little bit about that. So regarding inflation, right? So that has, we've gone through this cyclical, I can't even say the word.
Cyclical?
That's it. We've gone through that, right? So let's back up and talk about COVID. Everybody, we didn't expect even in the collection, let me talk about what it looked like during COVID, because it was crazy. I was working as a COO for a big organization, 500 agents, offshore, onshore, okay? COVID hits. Nobody thinks of COVID. Nobody knows what's going on with COVID. It was the craziest time. And basically what we did was by the way, government and all our regulators wanted no way were you allowed to work from home. Collections agencies were not allowed to work from home because of the, privacy, consumer debt, all the personal information, everything needed to be done, in an office under a camera where you're,
All the data
yeah,
is
all
in their
the data
computer systems.
secured, data security, right?
Yep.
And all of a sudden this happens and we have to offshore. So this is what or outsource and go home and work at home. So it was the craziest times, and we didn't know what it was going to look like. We thought, our loan loss, our collections as a debt buyer, we thought was going to continue to, unfortunately, we didn't think that we were going to have a rise in people paying their debt. We thought, there's going to be more debt, and there's going to be, we didn't know. I mean, nobody predicts this stuff.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, we assumed that it wasn't going to be good. It wasn't going to be good.
Right.
Well, it was amazing. Our accounts were getting paid off like crazy. People were sitting at home paying their debt. They didn't want to, they were getting this extra money from all the
government,
all the government
the
extra money.
PPE
Yeah. And they were getting all this extra money. So they were paying all their debt off. And we were getting tons of accounts paid. I mean, we couldn't believe how much, it was really great, really good times, right? We knew that wasn't going to stay, it just wasn't going to stay
Wasn't
consistent.
sustainable.
No. And all of a sudden, here we are. We're coming out of COVID, and it was okay. And then now we're flattening out. We're going back to normal. And what happens, and then now all these consumers who were out of debt, out, living life again, and, unfortunately saying, hey, you know what? They don't want to work. This is the crazy part right now, to be honest, Tina. They don't want to work. They don't want to go to a job. They don't want to work. And they're spending all this money that they don't have. So they're living off credit cards. I don't know when they're going to change that in their minds and say, wait a minute, you know what? I got to pay off all this debt that I accrued now, because it's not, this isn't free money. So I think they got used to.
They got out of the habit of having to get up and commute and answer to someone, go to work, and they got a taste of that and lost the drive, the momentum, found that, wow, I was in a job that I really didn't love, and I have a cushion here, and they are now out spending the cushion that they got from the government. And credit has been really easy. So I know even from the mortgage industry, we had the mortgage crisis 15 plus years ago now.
Yep.
And we had the Dodd-Frank Act in 2010, and that changed things, because it used to be everything was, stated income and 100% financing back then, and we know where that led us. And so little by little, what I have seen over the years is the lenders get more and more comfortable. When we got back on track, it was, nope, you were not getting, the quality of the borrower was greater, and that you had to have a higher credit score. You definitely needed to put down at least 20%, et cetera. And little by little, it's like, okay, 15%, 10%, 5%. Now you can have below 700 credit score again.
Yep.
And thus, here we go. So rising debt. And that holds true for auto financing. For these credit cards, what's amazing to me is that they get away with the 29.99% interest rate on these credit cards. So, I mean, how is this even possible?
Well, look, the interest rate is, so I have a little bias on that. I feel that we're not forced to take out credit cards. Nobody forces you, to do that. You make
Correct.
a decision, conscious decision. If you're making a conscious decision to sign up for 29%, then that's what you're making a conscious decision on. We have to hold ourselves accountable at some point for some of our actions.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I have more of an issue with. What I'm noticing is there was these new products coming to market Affirm's one of them, some of these other products that if you look on Amazon where, and it's not just Affirm. I think Affirm credit reports, but there's some of these companies that don't credit report. Okay. So basically
It's a lender.
it is.
It's a type of short-term money lender.
Yeah, it's like overpayments, pay now, but they don't report to the credit. And basically, it's skewed because you have consumers who could have tons of these debts that they borrowed this money from. And I don't say tons, but you don't know. You don't know how much of these they have, where it's not reporting. It's like buy here, pay here stuff, kind of like that, where hey, if you really want this item, Tina, it's $100, and if you don't have the $100, you can pay 5 installments of $20 for the next 5 months. Oh, that's great, but you might have 10 of those. How do I know? And I heard there's
How
some,
do you know, as a person who's evaluating whether or not to lend you money for a mortgage or a new credit card?
That's right. That's right. But I think, look, there's a lot of regulations, and I don't want to get into too much about it because I'm not a banker and I'm not part of, any of the regulators. But I do know that some of they call it junk fees, whether they are junk fees or not junk fees. Some are not junk fees, and they're actually, I'll give you an example. If I was somebody who had a checking account, and yes, I'm used to being overdrawn because that's how I live, and I'd like to have overdraft protection. Some of the new ruling is saying, no, don't charge that fee for that, but that fee protects me from hundreds and hundreds of dollars of checks bouncing. So, we need to know and pay attention to some of the regulations too. Some of it is great, and some of it's not so good. So, but again, I'm not a lender, so I don't like to get too much into that whole debate because there's concern. You always want to protect the customer, and then you also have to look at the banks are taking a risk too here, right? By lending the money. If we had it in our, if we had our own checking account, we wouldn't need to borrow money. But there is an ecosystem in the financial markets. There's an ecosystem. Borrow, pay back, and you build your credit that way, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate what you said a few minutes ago about we do need to take responsibility as a consumer. Nobody says that we have to apply for these credit cards with high interest rates. It's great that it is the credit is available. What's interesting is that with any kind of debt, right? So it's great that it is available if we can get it. So what's really interesting is that, for example, I took advantage in the past of taking out more credit, actually, getting cards that were interest free. So you've got these 12, 15, 18 months. And I think what these companies are hoping for is that you will max those out. And when the interest free period is up, you will not be able to pay it back. And then they'll start hitting you with the high interest rate. So there is always this pro and con to everything. So while I said, well, I can make investments, I can pay no interest on 20, 50, 100 grand over here. I can invest over here and make money. Why not float that debt, right? For a year, 2 years on some of them even, and make money elsewhere. The thing is, they don't know, of course, what you're doing with those, and all they see is that debt is rising. So the debt ratio is going up, and next thing you know, my credit got smacked big time. I'm always a person, in my 800 plus credit score, and all of a sudden my credit is going down by increasing the debt. Not that I couldn't pay it. But they're just looking at the picture. And then every week, I'm getting multiple advertisements wanting me to consolidate that credit card debt. Pay off your debt at, this 3.75 or 7.25 interest rate. So they're somehow getting these lists, right? They're getting these lists, and there are those entities out there that know who's got the debt, who we get to market to. What can you tell us about that? Like, who's getting the information? How do you have the information that you have? from your customers, right?
Well, that's, I mean, you're talking about
I'm talking about
origination. So
yeah.
I'm not really in the origination side, so I
Okay.
can't answer those questions for you. I can tell you that when we acquire as a debt buyer, and I'm buying debt from a major issuer, right, we're required to get all the documentation and information, especially in the event that the customer may be disputing the debt or whatnot. We have to have all docs. And we, as a debt buyer, you're going to do huge amounts of due diligence when you're buying debt, making sure everybody thinks it's pennies on the dollar, and that's a bunch of garbage. There is no
It may
pennies.
have, yeah.
There's no pennies on the dollar. It's, you're taking a huge risk buying debt, and the cost to collect is a lot. So there's a lot to it that isn't, you're taking that risk on of people that didn't pay their bill. So anyway, long story short, to answer your question, I can't, but what I can tell you is when you buy debt, you're buying all documentation. Where does a consumer like yourself, if you're somebody borrowing money, I would assume, and this is just an assumption, if you're online, looking around for 0% interest rates, I don't know about you, but I know for me, just as a consumer, if I'm looking something up and I'm trying to shop for something, all of a sudden I'm getting notified that,
Yeah.
hey, would you like this? Would you like that? So
Yeah.
I would assume they have that same algorithms. AI is here to technology. That's the answer, probably.
Yeah, technology is
Yeah.
here for sure. So I want to go back, though. I want to go back with you to the beginning because 35 years
Yeah.
that you have been in this business, because you don't look like you could have even been in business for 35 years.
Thank you.
But so, and again, a mother of 3 children. How did you tell us about your background as a mom, how you got into this business, why you got into this business?
Sure. So a couple things. Thank you for making me feel young, because I always joke when I would go on stage
You
and
are.
talk to people and
We
say,
are.
hey, you know what? I started when I was 5.
Yeah.
But to give you a background about me, I started, this was a very weird situation, but back 35 years ago, it mattered how you talked on the phone. So if you had a deep voice, they were looking at you as somebody, as a great bill collector, because the more you were deep, you were, it was a very to be honest, it was an aggressive time. It was different. It's not today's world. So collections back then was, how assertive are you on the phone? Well, I'm a
Like a
female.
fear tactic,
Yeah,
almost.
mostly men. This industry was built by, it was all men, and there's very few females. So I had a boyfriend at the time who had a really deep voice, and they said, hey, Kent, would you like a job doing collections? And he wasn't interested, and this guy hung up the phone, and I said, what is that? And he said, that's somebody asking me to do collections. I'm not into doing anything like that. I'm whatever he was doing at the time. And I said, oh, well, maybe I would like to do that. And he goes, well, then call him back. And I said, I will. So I called the guy back and I said, hey, would they be interested in hiring me? And he said, well, you don't have the voice for it, but, you can go in and interview. And I'm like, the voice for it? I was raised with all boys, super competitive. Always got to go to win. And especially I'm told I can't do something. That was
You have like 3 brothers?
yeah,
or-
and they're all older. And I was very, you're telling me I can't do something? So I went in, I interviewed, I got the job. So all I knew during training is the louder you were and the more assertive you were, the better shot you got noticed to keep the job, because everybody didn't make it through training. It just didn't. Your salary was like $200 a week. So, it was crazy. And commissions was $100. It wasn't but back then that was a big deal. So
Right.
long story short, I was the loudest in the room. So that's how I got noticed, and made it through training, made it out to the collection floor, got a great amount of mentors. What I used to believe in, and I still do, is I'm going to look around for the best person in the room. And when I say the best, top performer, great attitude, positive, somebody who I wanted to emulate. And that's the person I wanted to sit by and I wanted to duplicate. Because all I believed is this: if you were the best at what you did, if I just mimicked everything you did, I have a good shot. It's like a recipe to a cake.
Yep.
You give me the recipe, I'll make the cake. That's it.
Yes.
But if and so that's basically was my mantra. So I learned how to be really good. And then I got really great at it because I realized over time, because my competitive nature, I always wanted to be number one. So I went into this always constantly of, if somebody was on my coattails, I would, people come up, oh, where are you at for the month? And I would just go, oh, I'm not doing so good. I mean, I just wouldn't tell people. It was like this game. My job became a game. Now, I'll tell you where I came up short or felt less than was I didn't go to college. I'm not a college graduate. I started and stayed in this industry. So I grew up in it. And I remember going to one of the owners of the company, telling him, saying, hey, I think I want to go back to college. And he goes, for what? You're great at what you do. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I said, because I want an education. And he said, it's not going to make a difference. I have an education. It gets you nowhere. Just keep doing what you're doing.
No greater education than on-the-job training.
So I said, okay. There's times where and listen, I just looked at a thing on LinkedIn where this woman at 109 graduated Stanford, swear to God, or 108 or something. And I went, okay. So if that's something I really want to do down the pike, I'll do it.
Start at any time.
You can start at any time. And we'll talk about that. But anyway, so I decided to continue on. I became a trainer. I did everything within a collection agency, from training. I laugh, cleaning the bathrooms at times when collectors, I'm serious, like some of the things you would do. I held huge meetings, motivational meetings at times when I became, because I got fortunate to move up the chain and got to COO level, right?
So you learned how to be with people.
Yeah.
So you learned how to be with people. And you said something really profound there, which is also like emulate. That wasn't the word that you used, but emulating what others who are successful are doing. Mm-hmm. So the best way really to learn is who in your industry or for what you want to do, watch them. Yeah. Watch their success. And you can make it your own, your own unique way. But it is a great way to learn. And a lot of people do want to just sort of randomly do it themselves without doing that. And I think that really is the fastest way to learn. Find somebody who's doing what you want to do. Yep. And who's a leader in that industry and that field, and learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. And even look at the 1 minute mile. I mean, I look at things as if, you kind of look at it from if this is the top, then how do I get just a little bit above that? Like there's records. I want to know how to break the record. That's my mantra. If you're this good, I'm going to help you be much better. Even if it's $500 more a month, if it's, whatever it is that they're doing better, I like to look at it as, if you're here, you can always do better. I believe, for me, continuing education. That doesn't mean going to college. It means learning from others, reading books, spending time with people.
Or just taking a course. You don't have to get a full degree, but there are many different individual courses that you can take.
But even spending time with you.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you're plethora of information. You've learned so much. Sometimes it's just shutting up and listening, right, to the person next to you. You could learn so much from them. So back it up. So I went through all this process, and that's how I got 35 years. And I landed in Florida during COVID and did a startup here.
3 kids.
3 kids, getting ready to go out. Well, let me back up.
Yep.
Because we talked a lot
about.
Back
up.
About autism. Okay.
Yes.
So I have 3 children. I have a daughter who is now 27. I have to think about this. And I have twin boys that are 26. So when they were 3, my twin boys were 3. Actually, all during their childhood in the beginning, they were not progressing the way most kids do.
Your daughter as well?
No, my daughter was.
You're saying the
yeah,
twins.
The twins, my boys. My daughter was fine, fine, no problem. But when I had the boys, after a year, normally you'd expect them to have some conversations, start talking,
Babbling
mama,
a
Bob,
bit,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah.
nothing. So it continued, and then, we took them to different, therapists
Specialists.
and specialists and all those things, and found out that they were just delayed because they were twins, is what the beginning was. But then as time went on, they still had what they call twin talk. And it was like that, and I was like, well, now they're two. I mean, I'm not getting anything out of them. They babbling back and forth to each other. So took them again to another specialist at the Philadelphia Children's Hospital. And they said, oh, well, it could be PDD. Back then it was called I don't know what it stand for, to be honest. It was a form of autism, but
On the spectrum.
yeah, but when they said PDD, to be honest, it made you feel a little bit better. I did feel like, oh, okay, we're going to be able to fix this. I'm a fixer, so to me, I wanted to fix the
You
problem.
wanted a diagnosis
Yeah.
also. It's like, well,
Yeah.
if I know what it is, then
Yeah.
I can work
Fix
towards
it.
fixing it.
Yeah. And then they went and gave me the diagnosis down the pike maybe 6 months later, because we didn't see any progress, to my one son. So we separated the twins. One went to one preschool, the other one went to a different one. And my one son progressed and the other one didn't. And in fact, he started going backwards, and, took him back to specialists, and they gave us a diagnosis of autism. And I was devastated. I'll never forget that. Probably used the job as a way to deal with
At
my
the time,
emotions.
you're the CEO of,
No, I'm not then.
You're not then.
I'm in a VP stage. Yeah.
But you're working full
Yeah,
time.
I'm working full time, trying to cope with this whole diagnosis and figuring out how are we going to proceed. My ex-husband was working full time. I was working full time. Fast forward a couple years, my son started like chewing on windowsills and things like that, and being very, allowed, and I wouldn't say aggressive to others, but having tantrums that, normal daycares were like, yeah, no, sorry, we can't have him here. It's not working out. I remember having to change different daycares to facilitate my son, which was tough for me because we were just like, what's going on? Fast forward further, I, took in a position with my former company as sales, and I was traveling all over the place. I was very successful because I utilized the tools I got from being a collector and duplicating, the best of the best. And I always was striving to be the best at no matter whatever I was doing, be the best mother, be the best, bill collector, be the best salesperson, be the best wife, be the best mom. So if I came up short, it was very hard to deal with. This stuff was very hard to deal with. My son would, I hate to, I would come home from work and feces would be all over the walls and basement. And it was like...
And now there's another human being that you are responsible for, and that's nothing, you can control you, but
Can't
now it's
control
like
that.
this is...
Can't control this, yeah. And it was like, I don't know if you remember VCRs.
Yes.
Well, because he destroyed them with, his bodily stuff, we would have to throw a VCR out every single week. We would be throwing out TVs a lot. I mean, things like we would be going, in order to replace these items, we'd go to thrift stores to deal with, because it got too expensive. I mean, you can't buy a VCR every single week.
Right.
I mean, but we were getting new
From
things.
it being damaged.
Yeah. Him jumping off things. He's very rough on just things. Things were getting busted quickly. His bed, a couple times his bed, jumping off beds. A friend of mine lost her daughter from one of those,
Bunk beds?
No, a bureau falling on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I have to tell you, the fears of my son doing some of that stuff, because he used to jump off of the dressers onto his bed. I mean, you're talking about it was kind of like I'd come home from work and it was chaos. And I'd go into work like everything was okay, because as you become leader, you can't be bringing all your stuff in. You just come into work like stoic. Like, yes, everything is good. Everything is fine. You're in the C-suite. You're sitting at a conference room. You're getting a call that your son has just done something. And you're just like, hi, okay, I gotta go, or something, it's the, they call it work-life balance. I never had work-life balance. That
Yeah,
was not,
yeah, good luck.
yeah,
And that's why
that wasn't my
in
life.
in
Yeah,
dealing with the C-suite, executive life coaching, it always comes down to our relationships.
yeah,
The relationships, and it's usually the relationships at home with our significant other, with our children, and the impact that that has on our professional life as leaders and having to put on the mask and put on the face,
yeah,
at work. And so, and the challenge of that. So, on the one hand, it's an escape.
yeah,
It's a place where you can, things you can control and where you can excel at work, and yet things are falling apart
at home.
at home. And so, how did you kind of evolve in the credit space in the business while you are figuring out what care your special needs son, what your son who's been diagnosed with autism needs over the years?
Well, over the years, I mean, you deal with life. Life is, this is my life.
Yes.
I did feel sorry for myself for a while. I mean, I did. There were times where I wished I had, I had normal kids. What was normal kids? What are normal kids? Then
Normal is relative.
yeah, and then I
Yeah.
saw some people who I was fortunate enough not to have my kids do things like, you know, just they didn't rebel. I was a hover parent. I was very much they call it helicopter mom. I think
Yeah.
that was me. I was very involved with all my children. But how do you cope? You move through it. You get help. You talk to people, and you move through it. I became more of a therapist at times with people I worked with, so they would come in and talk to me about their problems. And I realized, I'll tell you what changed me. I used to drive home. I'm going to try not to get emotional, but I would drive home and I would never forget, I made a right, and there was a house on the left. And this house on the left, there was a mom, and I used to watch, she must have painted this beautiful mural on the side of her barn part of her home, but she would take her daughter in a wheelchair to this bus every day, and this child was that way the whole time. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness, like what kind of life are you dealing with? Like, oh, I emotionally felt so charged of like sadness for her, that her daughter, and she had a
in a
feeding
wheelchair.
tube, and it was obvious this person was never going to get out of that position. And I went, I don't have it that bad. I don't have it that bad, and honestly, I should be grateful for what I have. And I think I turned my struggle into gratitude and looked at it as, look, God, whoever your higher power, chose me to raise my children and to raise this special needs child. He's got autism,
right.
he's got epilepsy, he's got MR, disabilities, where he is always going to need somebody like me to support him for the rest of his life.
Caregiver.
That's right. But I don't look at this as what I did before. I've evolved. I looked at it more as a burden. This is no burden. This is a gift. You know how many gifts my son has given me? Patience. I can sit with any human being and listen to what's going on in their life and have empathy.
empathy.
Yeah, empathy, and say, okay, how can I help you? And show up and be authentic and be real. And there's so many times I didn't want to share any of this with anybody. Nobody knew all this stuff about me. I kept it all inside. Then I realized that I'm not doing anybody a service, including myself, by not talking about it and saying, you know what?
Absolutely.
This is not like some burden. This is actually, he in himself is an angel to me at times. I look at him as such an angel who's happy. His life is happy. He gets everything he wants all the time. All his needs are met. And he doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't have to follow the rules of this world.
He's not spending time in his head like
No.
a lot of us do,
Yeah.
ruminating about
No.
things and
No.
stuck.
Yeah, he looks at life as what's the next adventure? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
Yes.
Aren't we supposed to be looking at our next adventure? And yet, we spend so much time in our heads about all the things that are going wrong. I still do it all the time, but I look at it as, I have a gift every day. I wake up, I'm breathing. So I have a gift to give, and I have to help other women and people that are going through this
And
stuff.
that's why we're friends.
That's right. Yes.
There's a South African proverb that says, I am because you are. I am because you are. And so the way that we show up, the universal law that resonates with me most is everything is energy. So we are energetic beings. And so I meet someone like you. I don't know your story, but I can feel your energy and that empathy and the authenticity in the connection. And so those gifts, like you said, that you got from your son, it impacts you as a leader, as a connector, as a networker. And we've even spoken about how that plays into the role people think about, a debt collector, right? With this and so you have an interesting frame in working with all of the organizations with their people on what it is to collect, debt from the consumers out there, because we are all people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're all people, and the quality of our life experience depends on the quality of our relationships, I believe. And that's why in the domain of the trifecta, health, wealth, and relationships, that we all face that every day, the state of our health and wellness, and money and our finance and our debt, or assets and investments, and our relationships. But in the end, the relationship to ourself, to key others in our life, and just to life and our mindset and our perspective is so important, again, to our life experience. So I see, not only are you a leader in your field, but how your personal life and these challenges and struggles have formed who you are and how you lead what you live in your industry. So continue with your sort of evolution, your growth in your business while you are raising special needs son and your kids.
Well, I don't know how much time we have, but I want to tell you one story about this whole autism thing that I think resonates or helps me and maybe helps the audience. So I was in Jamaica, building out a call center in Jamaica, and I met this. I went there for vacation with my family, and I wanted to show my children a little bit about where mom works and some of the things. And this is when I was in the C-suite. So I'm taking them, we're coming off a cruise, and I'm taking them to the call center, which is behind, by the way, gates with armed guards. Different than what we're used to in the U.S., right?
Yep.
But I want them to experience it. We come in, warm welcome. This collection team, unbelievable warm welcome. A different culture. You wake up sometimes on how people are when they're in this different culture. One woman steps aside, steps back, because she's meeting all my children, including my son, who's got special needs. And she doesn't say anything to me then. I come back a month later to do my normal check-in, making sure everybody's doing things, did a lot of training, built them up, taught them how to do auto collections and different collections. So anyway, she pulls me aside. She goes, "What's wrong with your son?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "What does he have?" And I said, "He's autistic." She goes, "My daughter's autistic." I said, "Oh." And she explained to me that in their culture, they're looked upon negatively. If you have special needs, you kind of, you put them in your house and you don't bring them out, which was sad. It saddened me on how, and I won't get into all the detail, but what I will tell you is, by helping her understand different things we shared about what was going on, she got to talk to me and wasn't ashamed about what was going on, because she had a lot of shame.
A special needs
she
child.
was in shame about it, and I was very open, and I talked to her a lot about, like, oh, we're having sleep issues, and she needed melatonin, and we were talking about how you get melatonin, and just things that two moms come together, different cultures brought us together with that. So where I'm at today, with my son, I mean, fast forward, he's adult, we're starting to figure out where he's going. When I came to Florida, I got divorced, so things have changed for me dramatically. I lost everything, high C-suite, boom, everything's going great, lose it all, get plummeted, get hit with the hurricane, whatever you want to call it, and now you got to rebuild. I don't know what is worse. I mean, there all
It's
these
everything from the divorce
life
and
challenges.
still
Yeah,
responsible for your
yeah.
son and lose a
Responsible for
business.
life. Yep. And now starting over. So CredTech evolved a year ago because I took a risk and said, you know what? Got laid off from a job. I could have just dug my head in the sand and said, oh, poor me, I can't do anything. And listen, I had the worst time in the last couple years, mentally, spiritually, physically, everything just was melting down.
It's important for people to
Yeah.
hear because we have a mental health crisis right now
Yeah.
since that's grown since COVID, and
Yeah.
so this is important what you're saying.
Yeah, and I didn't utilize drugs and alcohol to deal with it. How I dealt with it was head on. And listen, it was kind of like I taught all these folks motivation. I had these motivational meetings, right? Teaching people how to come out of these, and I remember,
Tough times.
yeah, but I used to listen to all these people going through like real struggle and thinking, oh, I didn't really go through that struggle. That's why I said sometimes don't ask the universe for something, because guess what? It's going to happen. And, but it was probably the best thing that could have happened for me because I became such a stronger individual, and I learned to get up. I used to always tell people this. Well, I had to follow what I taught. When you're at the bottom of I used to always think of a well. When you're at the bottom of the well and you can't go any further, there's only one way, and it's up, and you climb the ladder. Well, I had to tell myself, it's time to climb the ladder. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Get up, get going, start moving. Do what you say what you do. Lead what you live. I mean, I had to do all these things. I had to start being the authentic person. I had to start taking the layers of things that were going on with me and getting real with people and saying, this is me. This is who I am. Like it or not, this is me. And, it's uncomfortable.
So
it's
being
uncomfortable.
more open,
Yeah.
authentic, and sharing your story,
Yeah.
it sounds like you not only became more free,
Mm-hmm.
but it also gave you more confidence. You realized letting go of any shame and guilt of the past and finding the gratitude and seeing the gift and all of the lessons. What can I take away? And, I feel that everything in life is lessons and blessings.
Yeah.
And so, when anything happens, what is this meant to teach me?
Yes.
What am I supposed to learn from this work situation, this challenge, this failure, not failure.
Right. Not failure. Yeah.
Failure, not failure, right?
Yeah.
And that's in a work context and communicate, and so much is in communication breakdown. And by you communicating, you're out communicating more. That is leadership. I mean, leadership. One of the top skill is communication in all of its forms. How are we communicating our message to others and who we are and what we stand for? So it's amazing that you are able to manage all of that, and the resiliency. That's big, is to just get up, one more time.
Yep.
Get up one more time. And so where you are today is amazing, and you are getting out more and more, because I know I've seen you on TV, I've seen you on CNBC, and you're sort of out there and telling your story a lot, which you've experienced. And autism is on the rise. I don't know this is what the statistics are saying. Special needs and things, there are different reasons for that. I imagine we don't need to get into all of that, but it seems to be on the rise. But more and more people are being open and finding community and getting support.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah. When I had my twins, it was 1 in 141. 1 in 141. Now it's 1 in 30.
That's insane.
And that's why I was like, what is wrong with our environment? So there's still research. They're still going to continue researching. I don't know if it's going to happen in my son's lifetime, but he's got multiple issues, right? So it's not just the autism, but They do have found different things quickly, so I don't know. My guess is someday they may find some medication that can help trigger the brain to come back to life. I don't know what I would do if my son said, "I love you, Mom." I don't know what I would do. I think I would probably fall over in a chair because it would be weird, or talk to me. I don't know, because I'm used to my son the way he is, and that just would be
A
very
seeming disconnection.
well, because he communicates the way I understand it. You might not, but I know what he's saying,
Of course.
but what I'm saying is, if he started out talking to me, I don't know what I would do. I think I'd be like, I'd probably pass out. But do I want to hear his voice? Would I love to hear him talk to me? Yeah, of course. Would I like to know how he feels? Yes, because I have to guess it. And I don't like to guess how people feel. I'd much rather hear, what can I do to help you? So yeah.
And coming from transformation, I love nothing more than I would sit with individuals and have them see the higher possibility for themselves, or things that they hadn't seen before. And so this is an infinite game that we're playing. It's an ongoing journey, and there's still that possibility. He's only 26 years old.
Yep.
And so looking at it is, and he will one day.
Yeah.
He will speak, and he will communicate. And it's just continuing to accept what is.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Accept what is, with intention. And so what I'd like you to leave us with is, from the human component, sharing with us, there's the work that we do, and people say money makes the world go round. Money is the root of all evil. There's so much has to do with individuals' relationship to money, to their debt. Some people, I've heard people say, I love my debt. I love my debt as much as I love my wife and kids. My debt is what made me a billionaire, kind of thing. So it just depends on what you're using the debt for. But when it comes to debt collection, for all of us, for those people listening, and for going through hard times, and they get the phone calls like from debt collection, and we've talked about this, for people to understand that person is not the bad guy,
Right.
because they are confronting the responsibility that each one has.
Right.
And what you could say to individuals about that.
Well, I'm going to put my debt collector hat on, or agent, whatever you want to call it. When someone would talk to me about their problems, I would treat them as I want to be treated. So I would look at it as, I'm going to treat you the way I want to be treated. I'm going to treat you with empathy. I'm going to understand it. I know that you didn't sign up for it, and maybe you did sign up for it, but guess what? You're not going to jail for it. I mean, you did what you did. You learned from it. Maybe you didn't learn from it. Who knows? Maybe this is your second or third time around. I used to talk to customers who have gone through this a couple times. It wasn't their first rodeo in bad debt. And they kept repeating the same mistakes, looking for different results. And we know that's insanity. But I never would say that. We would look at the situation and we'd come up with the solution. And that's it. And know that the other person on the other end of the line isn't the bad guy. They're just telling you what you already know. You already know you're in debt. It's not like it's this is rocket, oh my God, you told me something I didn't know.
Right.
You went out and you bought the new thing. So now you have to pay the piper in some way, shape, or form. So how do you do that? Just pick up the phone and resolve the situation. It isn't going away. And sometimes people think it's going away, and next thing you know, they're getting sued. So that's like, the last thing you should worry. You should be dealing with it well before it gets to that point.
Right.
And know that that person on the other line probably has gone through the same situation. When I was a kid, I did some things where I charged up a bunch. I wanted my house perfect, and I bought everything right away. And I ended up taking more money out than I needed to. And then I ended up having to pay all that money back, And it was really difficult to get out of, but I got out of it. You'll get out of it. And when you do get out of it, you'll feel really good about that, you know. But money is not the issue. It's how we use the money and how we perceive money. Money is great. When you have a lot of it, obviously it's good. You can do and be and have what you need, So I don't think money is the thing. I think it's how and by the way, I will say this in closing too. Unfortunately, in schools, we don't teach our kids how to manage money. That is not even something that's covered.
Yes, financial literacy, and
that's
especially for women.
Yeah.
Women also. I mean,
Yeah.
children in schools. It starts in schools, but women are lacking in financial literacy.
That's right.
And say maybe they're in marriages and relationships where the man is the breadwinner and they're not really on top of the finances, and then we know that more than 50% end in divorce, and they weren't necessarily career women working like you and like I was. So there's a lot of education that needs to go out there, and there's a lot available. By the way, Elon Musk will actually say people don't need a college degree.
Right.
There is every single thing possible available now with the internet for you to learn. You can Google how to learn or do or be or have anything, and it is available to you, without a college degree. So there is, and you can sit at home while you're not doing anything or while you're unemployed and look it up. It up. Google it or, however. So thank you so much, Susan, for being here. How can people reach you? How can your customers reach you?
Well, you can call me or you can go to my website, which is www.credtechconsultingllc.com, and you can schedule a meeting with me and we'll have a conversation on what you're looking for, and I'll see if I can help. And if I can't, I have plenty of connections.
Amazing resources.
Yeah. My website shows all my partners. So I have everything you can think of when it comes to debt, collections, recovery. I have connections in most of anything you need. I could definitely refer you to, or one of my partners can help you with. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Susan Richards.
Thank you for having me.
I don't say goodbye ever. I say to be continued. So join me for another episode of Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio, where I have exceptional leaders in their field who lead what they live. Thank you. How many minutes?